All right. Hello, everybody. Welcome to episode number 441 or 2, I think, of the Restoring Rapport podcast. This is a podcast for young believers who are pursuing the goal of marriage and family, trying to get married as young as possible in a healthy way, according to God's design. My name is Seth Hensley. I come on twice a week, every week on Thursday and Sunday to discuss not only the benefits of getting married young, but I try to equip and encourage you in your pursuit of that goal. And today we're going to be reviewing a video where a woman posts on Reddit basically perplexed as to why her family is not as excited for her PhD achievement as they are for another family member's decision to have a child. And we're going to be kind of talking about like what's going on there, why that's the case. Because I think personally, I would, I mean, just standing in their shoes, I would be able to understand a little bit of the situation. And so we're going to talk about it and just we're going to kind of approach it from the different religions thing, the different religions perspective, because I don't know. I'm just constantly surprised by the number. There's so much polarization and like, what's the word? Like, inability to understand the other side and kind of like it's presented as like, how could they be so awful? And kind of both sides of this issue are doing this. You've got the more traditionalist people saying, how could you think that a PhD is equivalent to having a child? And then you've got the more progressive or liberally inclined, side saying, how is a child the equivalent of a PhD? And so I don't know, and they're both sides act like the other is crazy. And the reason that the reason they actually feel, they're being totally honest with you. They actually totally feel that the other side is crazy. Like they're 100% convinced that the other side is just off out of their mind. And what's going on here is they just have two different religions. They have two different sets of virtues and they have two different sets of sins. And they're kind of polar opposites of one another. In fact, and not only polar opposites, they're actually, those religions are at war with each other, and so it's hardly surprising when you see them having conflicts and family issues like this, because the sins of one religion are the virtues of the other in both cases. And so we're going to talk about that and just kind of go through that. But without further ado, let's go ahead and start the video and listen to this woman's story in her own words.
Which is the greater achievement, getting a PhD or having a child? This is, of course, very subjective, but I found it fascinating that on Reddit, there was a conversation in the child-free subreddit about this collision that was happening within a family where she was sort of trying to figure out, why does her family value her cousin who's having a child above what she just accomplished, and that is to get a PhD. Fascinating the way that she describes this collision. She says, am I allowed to be bitter and petty here for a moment? I'm going to vent. And then she says in a disclaimer, I fully realize I'm being petty and bitter. I should not be this immature at 36, but I'm going to allow myself because I've been holding it in. Nobody gives a crap about my accomplishments because having a baby is the accomplishment, apparently. Well, I guess I'm being unfair. My partner and my mom are my biggest cheerleaders, as is one of my aunts. My brother and the rest of my family, nada. I got a PhD, which was met with lukewarm likes on my Facebook post announcing that I had just passed my oral examination. I published my first book, and none of my family came to the launch except for my mom, my partner, and my aunt. Plenty of coworkers and friends came, and it was local. I get tenure. Again, no congratulatory gift, visits, or even a phone call. They don't buy my book or even ask for a free copy. Even while I was doing my PhD, I'd get the occasional, you're still in school comment. When a younger family member chose to go into a 2-year program, which is great, it was all, that's such a good choice. They'll finish in 2 years and find a job. The year I finished my PhD, my cousin decided to have her first baby at 20. It was planned. Let me tell you, it's like she won a Nobel Prize.
Okay. All right. Let's just pause there for a second. Okay. You're starting to see the religions thing come into perspective here. this woman is feeling undervalued by her family because her family is seemingly not as warm and receptive and congratulatory when she does things like achieve, great feats in her career, get tenure, write books, get her PhD, all this stuff, which, by the way, all has to do with her own personal development, her own personal advancement, her own personal autonomy, her own personal career, her own personal success. It's very individualistic. Individualism is a virtue for one of the religions that we're going to be talking about today, and it's not the traditional religion. Okay, it's not and when I use the word religion here, I'm not using I should probably not use the word religion because I'm not talking about Christianity, atheism, Mormonism, Islam, stuff like that. That's not what I'm talking about. I'm talking about worldviews here. Okay, there are two worldviews at war with each other. There is the more conservative traditional worldview, and there is the more and then you can't even use words like that because then people make it political. I'm not even talking about politics here. I'm talking about two different worldviews, I think is the word I should use. Worldviews. And one worldview, individualism is a virtue within that worldview. Okay. And in the other worldview, collectivism, community, service are the virtues. Okay. Service to other people, sacrifice, laying down your life for your friends. That's the narrative. Okay. And those virtues, in other words, individualism is kind of the sin in the more traditional worldview. Okay. And the sacrifice of self is kind of the sin in the more modern worldview. Okay. And so these worldviews are at war. And if I had to guess, now obviously you don't have details in here. This is just a Reddit story. This could even be fake and written by AI. A lot of these are Reddit stories that I've heard either my wife listened to or that pop up in YouTube video. I've never gone through these groups on Reddit. But a lot of them are just so extreme. I think they're fake. Like honestly, I would not be surprised if some of these Reddit stories are fake. So don't anyway, even if it's real, you never really know what this woman's life is like because she just doesn't give enough details. Like, here's what I would guess has happened. I would guess based on how the family is communicating what they value, that this is a more traditional family in the sense that they fall more into that first worldview that I'm talking about, the worldview that values service to other people and collectivism and community and fellowship more than individualistic achievements. Okay, so I'm assuming she was raised that way. Here's what I would guess happened. She grew up in that family, and they took her through their training process, and she got to college, and that training process was then that worldview that she had been raised in was then called into question by a different religion, and that religion was the religion of the mainstream institutions and stuff like that. Okay, and they began to expose her to an entirely new, different religion where, it has different virtues, it has different sins. Okay, and it could be because of some trauma she had. It could be because her college professors called into question parts of the religion that she was raised in, parts of the worldview that she was raised in, and she didn't have an answer for them. It could be that she was enamored with the sudden ability to be doing things for herself. It could have been a great number of things, but in any case, she chose her worldview was changed in that college experience. Okay, and now she has a different religion than her family. You're seeing where this is going. Okay, and there's going to be conflict because anytime you have two different religions coming into close proximity with one another and talking, no matter how respectful the conversation is, especially when you have, the sins of one religion or worldview being the virtues of another, there's going to be extreme tension and often controversy. And so that's why this is happening, in my opinion. Because again, the virtues of her worldview are, doing what makes you happy, finding self-fulfillment, doing self-discovery, living your best life, taking care, you do you, all that stuff. That's the language they would use. Okay. And then the virtues of the other worldview are expanding the family, being part of a team, laying down your life for your friend, impacting future generations, conserving values of the past. Okay. And all those things are polar opposite. Okay. Really, because it comes down to one is about other people, one religion is about other people, one worldview is about other people in service, and one worldview is about yourself. Okay, and those worldviews are always going to be in opposition to one another. Let's continue to see how her story wraps up here, though, and if she gives any additional information that changes, you know, that perspective that I just gave you.
My family started sharing all of her posts. There's a huge gender reveal in a rented space, a lavish catered baby shower, plenty of gifts. A family group chat is started for the sole purpose of keeping up with baby things. She then has her second and third child back to back. Guys, it's the best thing in the world. Biggest celebration. You go. So proud of you. More gender reveals, more parties, 2 girls and a boy. Wow.
Because the reason that's happening, sweetheart, is because that sister or cousin, who I think it was a cousin, whoever that was that chose to have children, is living her life through the worldview that the family belongs to, the worldview that you left when you went to college. Okay, so of course they're going to be happy. They're making decisions that are in total alignment with the worldview in which you were raised. Like, how is that a surprise? Well, and you shouldn't be surprised here. If you change religions, if you change worldviews, if you if you depart from the way you were raised, and you are, you become a member of something else, don't be surprised when nobody understands why you're doing what you're doing, does not congratulate you for doing what you're doing, because they do not have those virtues. Okay, again, you have a totally different set of virtues that you're following that nobody appreciates because they have different virtues. Okay, that's exactly what's going on here, I feel like. And it's just, why are we shocked? Why are we shocked? And it's the same way for her. Like, she's a part of a different worldview now. So all the things that her friends are doing, like, you'll hear the undertones as she talks here. You'll notice that the biggest undertone she had was she said, have a baby at 20. At 20, she does not see that as a good thing, because she sees those early 20s years as a time to what? Advance yourself. Do what you want to do. Have a good time. Travel. Live it up. Be your own person. Okay, so that's her. She doesn't understand why her cousin would do that. That's why she threw that at 20 phrase. There's no other reason to throw that at 20 phrase in there, unless you're trying to highlight something that you think is a sin according to your worldview. And your worldview is all about self-advancement, self-fulfillment, self-individualistic values. Okay, and so it's just puzzling to me about why she's confused here, because you don't have the same worldview as your family. So of course they're going to be, because a child advances the family. Okay, a child adds to the family. A child is a means of impacting the future. A child is a means of conserving values of the past by imparting and teaching them things that have been discovered and valued for thousands of years. Okay, a child is a way to impact the kingdom of God, according to the Christian religion, far beyond the years that you're alive on this earth, into the future after you die. Okay, of course it's an amazing thing. It adds to the family. You get more smiles, more laughter, more joy for that family. And so of course they're rejoicing for that, because that lines up with their worldview. Okay, let's continue.
While my new book is due to be released soon with an award-winning publisher, Crickets. Nobody gives a crap. Okay, so this is interesting. Actually, kind of surprising to me that I would say in a lot of families there would be the opposite reaction. I hear from people all the time whose parents are like, "What? You're having kids? Don't wait, whatever." But in her family, they are obviously really valuing having children.
Yeah.
Now, it's really fascinating. Some of the comments, one of the most consistent comments was something like, you need to get rid of your family. Go no contact with everyone who didn't attend your book launch. Delete the family group chat about the cousin who can't seem to figure out how birth control works. Oof. There is such a crazy divide between the way that we value these things. And I think that part of the challenge here is that we cannot figure out how incredibly valuable a child is. And part of what women have been taught for so long is that having children is so humdrum. But to a family, to a multi-generational family line, it is like winning the Nobel Prize. It is a massive deal. And I think what's really difficult and really hard on some women is that they assume that this was not something that was valuable. It's so common. There's been such propaganda through feminism to try to convince women that having children is not incredibly valuable. And so they go after other things. And now that pendulum is starting to swing back. And a lot of them are getting really frustrated and confused and shocked by that. So one of the things that was also commented is your family is more excited about a contribution to the family than something that only affects you.
Yes,
Shocking.
yeah, that's what it comes down to. And why is because the family has a different worldview. The family is about other people, laying your life down for your friend, being involved in community, service. These are not virtues that the other religion, the religion that she's coming from now, has. Okay, I keep saying that over and over, but to me, that's why this is happening. Is this woman and her family belong in they are in two different camps. Okay, let's not talk about where they belong because that gets more complicated. But my point is they're in two different camps. They're in two different armies. Okay, I don't know what other analogy to use. And these armies are at war with one another. These worldviews are competing directly against one another. Yeah, it really comes down to how you see the individual, in what way you value the individual. Do you see the individual as a part of a greater whole, part of a community, part of a team, or do you see the individual as the ultimate pinnacle of existence and the thing that we should all be, laying our life down to? Like and that really determines a lot of the choices and a lot of the virtues and a lot of the things that you think are good that you're going to have for your entire life. I don't know. This is just so kind of, and I'm not saying this is not a, what's it? I don't know what the difference between prognosis and diagnosis is. If I were in the medical field, I probably would, but this is not I'm not providing solutions here. I'm just sort of talking about what's happening in this situation. And that is exactly what's happening. This daughter and her family are not on the same team anymore. Okay, and I don't know how that happened. Like Jeremy said, there are other families that raise their children in the religion that this woman is coming from, that she received in college. Okay, and they actually worship, self-advancement, traveling, educating yourself, living it up, experimenting with different romantic partners, having fun, more than they value any of the virtues of the other worldview. Okay, and they raise their children like that. So it's not like families are all in one camp. These are two different, again, there are families that belong to another worldview, and they just have different virtues and different sins. Okay, so it's not like just the families are in one camp. Because like Jeremy said, I hear a lot of people who don't understand why you would have children, especially and particularly at an early age. Just like there are so many people I come into contact with who don't understand why you would get married, especially young. And they list these reasons why, and all of the reasons that they're listing are the sins of my worldview. And they're trying to use them as reasons why I would embrace their worldview. They're trying to use them as reasons why I would avoid getting married or having children. And I'm literally I just hearing them, and you're reinforcing my desire to get married young right now, because all those things you're listing are the sins of my worldview. Okay, and all the virtues that you're listing are just not what I want. They're not what I want. Compare that to, and then I will tell them my reasons for getting married young, and they're like, "You're telling me a bunch of bad things. Why would you want that?" I'm like, "Because you think they're bad things. I think they're good things. We're in opposite sides of a war because we're on opposite teams." Okay, and I love you. I care about you. I'm not trying to be disrespectful to you, but I'm just shocked by people's inability to seemingly here's what I'm saying. You shouldn't understand. They'll just say, like, over and over. People will say, like, I don't understand why she's doing this. I don't understand why she's doing that. It's very simple. The reason is they have a different worldview. They're coming from a different religion than you. Okay, and again, using that term religion, not in. I should just stop saying that, because I'm not talking about a Christianity versus, like all the other religions that I mentioned earlier here. I'm talking about a way of seeing things. Okay. Now, oftentimes the actual religions like Christianity and Islam and postmodernism and the Sikhs and all the other religions, a lot of times they'll fall into one of these two worldview camps because the virtues of those Christian religions or other religions align with one of those two camps, those two worldviews. But that's not the when I say the word religion, that's not what I'm talking about in this video. So let's continue. And this is super interesting. I'm wondering if anybody in the comments will say what I'm saying. That person came close. They said the reason is because a child advances the family and your book only advances you. But they didn't quite highlight why that was the divisive point. And the reason that's the divisive point is because it's a virtue, according to the first worldview, to and add to the family. And in the second worldview, it's a virtue to advance yourself. And those are two very, very different, things.
Committing 18 years of your life to raise a person is a lot more meaningful to family than a PhD. Getting a PhD is for you. Raising a child is for the child and the world. I would say also that's a win for the family as a whole.
Yeah.
And it doesn't mean that getting a PhD isn't for the world. I think this is a little bit extreme. I think that you could be doing this for others. But I think oftentimes, it may be part of what this commenter is sensing is that, yeah, there's something probably that your family knows that what you're doing is sort of self-centered. And what is happening when you decide, and I really like the way that they frame this, when you have a child, it's not like having the baby is the end of the process.
Yeah.
It's the beginning of an 18-year journey.
Yeah.
And so the comparison is what is being accomplished through the 18 years of raising a child versus what is being accomplished through the 10, 12 years of your education and trying to get a PhD. And as you begin to think about what is being accomplished, there's a lot more work that goes into raising a child. Raising a child is much more central to the actual goals and aims of the family itself, whereas the PhD is likely to be something more specifically around your personal individual life or your own personal individual mission.
Yeah.
So part of that is really important to understand. The commenter goes on to say, one of them is continuing the family line, and the other one is probably going to be a genetic dead end. Why would you celebrate the genetic dead end for ending her family line because she got a piece of paper instead? Okay. That was inflammatory. And the reason that person said that again is because they think the person who's writing this is crazy because they come from a different worldview. Like this, and I'm just going to tell you, I'm biased. Like I am 100% in the traditional worldview camp. Like I'm not just 1 foot in, I'm 100% in that. So I feel like people who write like Reddit articles like this are just as crazy as they think I am. But the difference is, and the difference I think that we all need to keep in mind is we need to keep respect central. You don't get to turn your love off for other people and treat them like crap just because they disagree with you. That needs to be, and you don't get to, and I would say it's disrespectful to act like somebody's stupid to their face because it's showing a lack of value for them and it breaks the golden rule, which is a virtue in my religion, Christianity. Treat others the way you want to be treated. Do unto others as you would have them to you. If you don't want people making you look stupid, then try not to make them look stupid. That's just kind of how I see it. So we've got to keep that in mind here. Like, yeah, you're in different religions. You're gonna the virtues of one are the sins of another. You're gonna be at odds all the time, constantly. Everything you say is going to be kind of an affront to the other person because of how different these religions, these worldviews are. This makes families really complicated because you got families who have members of both of these worldviews. And they're at the table together, they're eating, and they're like taking their meal together. And it's like, we don't align on much. Not only do we not align on much, my goal is actually to get rid of your virtues. Like, I mean, it really is like, it's very hard. Okay. And I understand how hard it is to be in this situation. I do want to posit one, because I told you that I was biased. I haven't really been getting into the arguments of who is right on this issue because this is frankly, I don't like, who cares what I'm saying? That's not everybody already knows what I think anyway, because I've done like 400 episodes on family and stuff. So it doesn't really matter. And nobody cares anyway, because it's just some dude on the internet. It doesn't matter. My future for this show, by the way, is going to be way less me centered. I keep trying to, I tried to break out of that
a couple years ago, but like having co-hosts and stuff. And it's very hard to find people that want to do podcasts because they either are uncomfortable in front of a camera or don't have a lot of time to give to something like this, or don't have a regular schedule opening that enables them to do something like this. And it's just something they're not as passionate about as, a lot of people aren't as passionate about these topics as I am, because sometimes they're from different religions. But my point is, it's kind of just been me. It's just been like a little self project for like years and years and years, and that is against my religion, my worldview. And so what I'm trying to do, and you might wonder, why isn't Lainey on here with you? Like, and you're like, you think I haven't tried to get Lainey on her thing? Like, she's just not. This is not her thing. And so maybe that means I should kind of not go down this, this podcasting road entirely, or maybe it means that, our children will do it with me. Like, I've been thinking, like, we're starting to have kids now. This is something that I want to have. I want to have for my children's entire life. I want to have things that we do together. And I think one of the beauties of being a dad is that you kind of get to guide your children's interests. You don't get to decide them, but you get to have a lot of input, because children are influenced by people that are very close to them. And as a parent, you're in a prime position to influence your child more than anybody else. And so kind of just, and I've heard Jeremy say this, the guy that we're reviewing today, say this, like, just take the things that you find interesting and raise your children to think they're interesting. And there, boom, you have a bonding opportunity for the rest of your life. And not only a bonding opportunity, but a work that you can do together towards the same goal. Assuming that your children stay in the same religion or worldview as you, they'll share that goal with you for the rest of their life. And so, like, I kind of want to make a tier list, like, of what falls within different religions. Like if you just give me a topic, like, I don't know, schooling, the workplace, different hobbies, gaming, hiking, sporting, sports, all this stuff, like, and I just kind of make us put them in either the one worldview or the other worldview, the self worldview or the other worldview, the other person-centered worldview. Like, where would they fall into? I think that would be fun. I think that would also get very offensive very fast, because the odds are that some of you listening to this are in a different worldview than me. So you would be offended at some of the choices I made there. But yeah, this is something that I want to eventually turn into a father-daughter project, or a son-father project. We're having a daughter first, my wife and I, on May 31st, for those of you who, I'm sure you know that by now. But yeah, this is really interesting to me. I find this fascinating, but more so a little bit just shocking, because people are constantly surprised and are appalled and are like shocked about how somebody else could think that. And I'm like, the reason is because they have a different worldview than you. That's what it comes down to.
Brutal way of describing it. I think that, again, we don't know a lot of the details of what this PhD was in. It doesn't mean that that's not a legitimate accomplishment. It doesn't mean that in a kind of more general situation, you wouldn't want to be supporting a family member who's accomplished something. An achievement of that size is significant. But probably there is something going on behind the scenes in terms of what the family is sensing and why the family is not supporting this person. It's not as simple, likely, as a PhD versus a child.
Yeah.
But I do think the way that this is being framed is really interesting, to take a step back and consider the difference between something that is for the larger family, something that is benefiting the entire family, something that does involve the whole family and is furthering the family line, versus individual pursuits. And part of what we need to be sensitive to is to say, look, anytime somebody in a family line or a family team has a child, that is a massive win for the entire family.
Again, if you have that worldview, and here's a couple hints that this woman dropped in her writing on Reddit that might be, there might be some baggage there that I picked up on. Is she said one thing that stuck out to me. She said, everyone was so excited with somebody else in the family got an associate's degree because they might finish school quickly and get a job, which makes me wonder. It's like, your family might not also be celebrating your accomplishments if they've been supporting you and you haven't been bringing in income for the family that's been supporting you for, extended period of time. Like, if you're just kind of indefinitely in school, paying money instead of bringing in money, that's a major stressor on whoever's providing that money. If it's not yourself. And so let's take that into consideration too here. And again, maybe she's funding her whole college adventure. Maybe she's not using family funds to do that. Maybe she's supporting herself, working full time and going to school full time. There are people that do that, which is, to me, it's crazy hard. And maybe she's one of them. But there are other people who go to school full time and they don't really contribute full time in any way, financially or otherwise, to their family. I hate to use the word freeloading off people, but if you're freeloading off people, and I know there are times when you just need help, like when you're going to, like if you're going to school, you just need your family to support you, which is fine, man. I did that, but there was an end date. You know what I'm saying? And if there's no end date, that could be a permanent stressor on your family. So of course they're excited when somebody else decides to take a different route and get a 2-year degree and only be a, a stressor, a financial stressor, I don't want to say leech, but a source of a liability in the sense of a money going out of the family account instead of money coming into the family account, for a small amount of time, and instead choose to then start bringing money in to the family. Or to your, and I use family in a very broad sense, like all the families that are connected in a larger family, all the micro families that are connected in a larger family. But yeah, that was something that I just made me wonder, like, is this woman like going to school indefinitely, going like hundreds of thousands of dollars in debt and not bringing in any money because somebody's that money's coming from somewhere. It's like she's not bringing, somebody's paying for her education. Okay. And if she's not bringing money in during this whole time, I can totally understand why the family wouldn't be a fan of this arrangement, and be more supportive of somebody instead who decided to bring in some money early rather than, go 8 years or whatever without working. So I don't know. This is a complicated issue, guys, but I just found this video interesting. Let's see how Jeremy wraps this up, though. And of course, I've said a million times before, my bias would definitely be towards having children as the better option than a PhD. Not that a PhD is bad, again, like Jeremy said, but just that a child is of infinitely more value to not only the family, but to it's of eternal value. I would say in the kingdom of God, the way that we're supposed to invest, and lay down our life for people, and launch children as arrows into the future to accomplish great things is much more of a different, and not even to accomplish great things. It's as arrows in the hand of a mighty man, so are children of the youth. It's more like, what's the word? I guess it is to accomplish great things too, but it's more like fighting the kingdom of darkness, fighting evil. And again, that evil is oftentimes the virtue of other religions that I think this woman has fallen into. And so I don't know. It's just, this is kind of a sad topic because I don't know. You have the people in the first worldview who have raised their children. Proverbs says, train up a child in the way he should go, and when he's old, he will not depart from it, which has an incredible amount of truth to it. That's not saying that your children have zero chance of rebelling and becoming involved in a different worldview and changing their mind about, everything they were raised to understand, but rather it's saying that if you raise your children a certain way, they tend to kind of, fall into that, rhythm. They tend to fall into that worldview. And so if you're recreating yourself in that sense, and, somebody a college swoops in and converts your child from your worldview into their worldview, instead of having children of their own like that, they just indoctrinate other people's children. Because that's how the second worldview is producing. The self people, the people who are all about self-actualization, individualistic achievement, stuff like that, they're not having children because children are hard and fly in the face of individualistic achievement and having fun. Okay, a lot of the time. In some ways, I would say they don't, but in a lot of the time. And so those people aren't having children. We have like a 1.6 replacement rate in the United States today. Like we are below replacement rate. We're a population in decline because that second worldview, it has been winning a lot recently. Okay. And because those people haven't been having children, in order to, reproduce themselves and not die out, they have to indoctrinate other people's children. They have to make converts of children that other people have raised because they've been too busy having fun partying and writing their books and doing their PhDs and having sex with a million people. And I'm saying that I know that sounded flippant, but I'm literally if you might think that sounds so crude and rude, Seth, but like that's the virtues of this other religion. When I say that they don't hear bad things, they hear good things. Okay, so like they've been doing exactly what their virtues are, just having fun, doing whatever they want, advancing themselves, and haven't been having children because that is not a virtue for them. So the way they continue their agenda, their what you call it, um, their mission is by converting other people's children, and the institutions that they're doing this through are colleges. That's how the other worldview is staying alive right now, is through the liberal arts institutions and the universities. That's how they're staying alive, because that's how they're recreating themselves. That's how they're reproducing, because they don't do it by having children. And so I just find that interesting too. Let's see how Jeremy closes this episode off, though.
And that we need to celebrate that in those ways. And this is, I think, what was missing when women were beginning to wrestle with feminism. Instead of choosing to become more like men and to go after achievements that are within the marketplace or within academia, we should have been celebrating the family, having children, raising children, multiplying the family line, and finding ways for creating and deepening that family culture. Had that been something that we were championing, I think that a lot of women would have gotten a lot more excited about having kids. And so I get so excited when I hear about a family that is actively engaging in supporting the mothers of their family and their decision to have children and
Mhm.
raise children. That is such a massive win for that larger family. So part of this is a huge paradigm shift that we need to go through in order to think about our families like multi-generational families. And if you want to go through that paradigm shift, go over to familyteams.com/transform. This is where we kind of walk you guys through each of these shifts to begin to understand thinking about your family as a multi-generational line can completely transform the way that you are raising your family, the kind of culture you're creating in your family. And this is where we're going to start to see and recover from a lot of these really bad messages that we've been.
Okay, yeah. So that was the end of his video. Check out that link on your screen, familyteams.com/transform. I've used a lot of their stuff. They're really great. But let me tell you guys, like, I don't know. I'm not saying you gotta okay, I'm just gonna talk to you as a Christian here. Like, Jesus's teachings are clear and yet complicated on this. Okay, here's what I mean. Like, Jesus was very singular minded as far as what he did, what he saw the Father doing. So he has his worldview, he has his religion, and he's doing nothing else. And and we're called to be like Christ. So we are called to like draw hard lines and like say, this is the way, I'm walking in it because this is what Jesus said, and I'm following Jesus and nobody else. That's a good thing to do. Okay. But Jesus also talked about, you know, respect, treating others the way you want to be treated, the golden rule. I'm not saying you got to be and Paul even talks about, we don't wrestle against flesh and blood, but against principalities and powers and rulers of the darkness of this world. We are fighting a worldview battle, an ideological battle, a values battle, and a virtues battle. We are not fighting people. Okay, so I do think you need to keep that in mind whenever you're engaging in these interactions with people who are in a different worldview and a different religion than you. Okay, like, I think the way that you go about that battle is by having the better arguments. Okay, if you've got the better arguments, if you've got the better evidence, then your way seems good. Okay, and you haven't insulted or demeaned or undervalued or dehumanized anybody who's in the other worldview that you're interacting with. Okay, that's how you wage war against principalities and powers and rulers of the darkness of this world, I think. Okay, is by doing what Jesus did, presenting evidence, doing miracles, so to speak, and then saying, this is the way, walk in it, and then backing it up. Okay, being a man of your word, doing what you say you'll do, giving evidence, living your life the way that in alignment with what you're arguing for, not being a hypocrite, things like that. I think that's how you wage these battles, because I don't think you do it by like attacking vitriolically people that belong to a different worldview than yourself. I don't think that creates converts. And I don't even think it's about a goal of creating converts of people who are already in different worldviews, but it could be about reaching people who have not yet picked a worldview and who are waffling or hanging in the balance, and they need to see some evidence for your side, man. Don't listen, you're presenting yourself well or ill for the kingdom of God. Everybody's watching. Everybody's watching you, man. So if you're advertising if you're advertising the kingdom of God in a bad way, man, that's such a devastating blow for our team. Okay. And so I don't know. Just I'm not saying you gotta attack people that are at your table that that belong to a different worldview, because hey, at least they're at your table. At least you're doing what Jesus did and eating with the sinners and the prostitutes and the people who are living exactly opposite as to how Jesus said you should live. But at least you're eating with them, because that was part of what Jesus did too. And so eat with people, talk with people, be respectful to people. Don't hold the line. Don't just let them run all over you as far as saying disrespectful things and making you seem like a weirdo for thinking what you do. Explain, if you get the chance to do so in a respectful way, why you think what you do. But I don't think you can cross that line of disrespect either and start kind of slinging names and pointing out how stupid that part of their argument is, or all that. You just gotta stay, maybe just keep it fun, laugh and stuff. I don't know. But hopefully this has been interesting for you guys. I found that woman's story interesting. Just, understanding and keeping yourself from being shocked, because there are going to be people in your life who are from different worldviews, and you've just got to be able to interact with them without fighting, and without strife and discord and arguments and things like that. The scripture doesn't have very good words for. So thank you for listening today. I didn't really get into how to do that so much today as I did diagnosing the problem and telling you why these people find each other so shocking, is because they're in different worldviews. But I hope you found it interesting. Thank you for listening today. Reach out and let me know what you thought of this video, as well as my thoughts on it, through the YouTube comments, or a personalized audio voice message or text voice message to the Facebook or Instagram page for the show. Would love to hear from you there. We would hey, if you want to talk about something, just tell me there and maybe we can get you on here. But would love to talk to you there. And thank you so much for listening today. God bless you guys, and I will talk to you guys next time.